Do you have? Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Real Investing Show. This is Stephen Earp, and I am with the great Taylor Davis, my co-host. And honestly, I just want to let you guys know, Taylor Davis is kind of a big deal.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to have to change my little name on the bottom over here to the great.
Yeah, the great. Yeah, and his office, he has many leather-bound books.
Smell of rich mahogany.
Yeah, and it smells of rich mahogany. So I don't know if you knew this or not, but he's kind of a big deal.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
So it's good to see you, man.
I love this topic.
I know we haven't gone live in a while. This will be a relatively short topic, but we get to ask this a lot. So we're going to talk about today how to buy your first rental. So how to buy your first rental. So let's jump right in. And Taylor, as an agent, if I were to come to you and say, I want to start investing in real estate, I don't have any rentals. How can I buy my first rental? What's your answer?
How do you buy your first rental?
Yes.
You leverage your personal property. So I'm going to highly, highly encourage you to buy a primary residence. The easiest way to do this is buy a primary residence that you want to keep as a rental. Mm-hmm. And if you go with an FHA loan, you can buy a duplex, a triplex, or a quadplex with your FHA loan. So, and what you're committing to is that it has to be your primary residence for 12 months. We're talking about 1 year. So if you were there for a year as your primary residence, you can then lease all of those units out. So if you want the highest and best return on your investment, you get an FHA loan as your primary residence. You're going to put 3.5% down. So you don't have to put 20% down. You're putting 3.5% down. You're buying a duplex or triplex or quadplex, and you're living in it uncomfortable. I mean, it's not going to be exactly what you want for a year, but that is the very beginning of your portfolio. And then a year later, you go do it again. Now you can go get a conventional loan with 5% down. That's a primary residence. And that'll need to be a single family home. You can't do multifamily on that. But then you can start buying some single families and buy one or two. If you do this for 3 years, you can have, up to 6 units in 3 years, and you're going to put 3.5% down on the first one and 5% down on the next 2.
Yeah.
Boom. You've got a portfolio of 6 units in 3 years, and you've put a total of 5%, 3.5%.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. I agree with you. If you were to ask me, how I should do it now, of course, it might be unique to each individual, but like another possibility for leveraging your home would be you could also get a home equity line of credit, a HELOC, if you have equity in your current home, and you can use that to put down on a rental property. You could get in order to put your down payment on a property using a commercial loan, which you normally have to put but anywhere between 15 and 25% down if you get a commercial loan on a rental property. So that's another possibility for leveraging your home in order to get a rental.
And by the way, if you bought a home before 2020, you've got a lot of equity in your home, right? Mm-hmm. And if you bought it even in the last to the beginning of 2020, you still probably have quite a bit of equity. So what that looks like, so a line of credit looks like is you've got your loan. So your house is worth $200,000. Your loan is $140,000. Well, you have $60,000 in equity there.
Right.
And you're going to the bank and you're saying, hey, I'm going to let you have a second mortgage on my house, and you're going to give me that $60,000. Right. And you're going to take that $60,000 and go invest it.
Yeah. So that's another possible way for getting to your first round. Those are if you're just getting started in real estate, I think that's the best way. I think that's the easiest way for the overwhelming majority of most people. Make as much money as you can on your W-2 job. Don't expect to go into real estate. Real estate should be a side investing thing. In my opinion, real estate should be a side investing thing until it overtakes your main income.
Yeah.
And then, and use your W-2 income to qualify for as much of a loan as you can get, and So that's how I would.
Would you say that that's a mistake, a fairly common mistake that a lot of investors make, is they try to go full investing too early?
I think there is an entire culture of information gurus online where people are attracted to kind of get rich quick or freedom, like freedom pornography or something like I want to go, I'm going to get in real estate in 5 years. I'm going to go live on a beach. I think that's a joke. And I think the overwhelming majority of people, there's always a story behind the story. So
what would you say is the difference between, and I'm derailing this a little bit, but what would you say the difference is between a get rich quick scheme and wealth creation?
Well, that's a great question. I think, and that there are biblical principles behind this and there are practical principles behind this. Get rich quick is based on greed and laziness. And if you want to get rich quick, you're probably greedy, you're probably lazy, and you probably don't want to make a big contribution to society. And I just think principles of living well, it's not going to reward you. You're not going to be rewarded for that. So real estate is not get rich quick, but I do think it's get rich certainly. Like if you keep going at real estate, if you keep buying real estate, you are almost assured that you will become wealthy at some point. So that's what I think. I mean, I think slow, intentional, methodical is the best way. It's the least risky. And you can definitely get rich faster than you can in other ways. But if you want to get rich quick, I think if you want to get rich quick, you're probably not the kind of person that's going to get rich at all. That's what I think.
Yeah, because you don't have that longevity, that grind, that hustle. You're just looking for the quickest way out.
Delayed gratification. It's like, hey,
delayed gratification. If there is one common trait amongst financially successful people, they can all delay their gratification.
Oh yeah. Well, it's like, think about from fitness. So it's like, oh, hey, I'm going to get married in 8 weeks and I want to lose 40 pounds. What can I do? It's like, well, what you can do is you can start losing the 40 pounds several years ago. That's what you can do.
Right.
Like, I mean, you cannot expect that you're going to have miraculous change in a period of 8 weeks when you don't even have the discipline to do it over 3 years. It's like,
right.
You have to crawl before you can walk. You have to walk before you can run. And if anyone is online telling you that you can go straight from sitting on the couch, being sedentary with no activity at all, and you can be running a marathon within 3 or 4 months, that person is lying to you so they can sell you a program. And the same thing is true of people who sell get rich quick real estate programs, in my opinion.
So if you're in your 20s, right, and you're considering getting into real estate, you've probably seen a lot of YouTube videos on how I make $250,000 a year in wholesaling properties, blah, blah, blah. You can do that. But to your point, by keeping a W-2 job, it gives you the ability to borrow money, right? Because banks they look at two things. They want to look at your credit score and they want to look at your debt to income ratio. And if you are a self-employed person, right, you're the hustler and doing all these side gigs, they look at that as risky income. So they have to look for 2 years of your tax returns, and that's what they're going to look at. If you're a W-2 employee, they look at that as stable income, and they're going to just take your last 2 pay stubs and go, well, this is how much money you make. So it's a lot easier for you to get a loan if you're a W-2 employee. So that's why you say, don't go out and just decide to start being a real estate guru and buying investment properties. Keep your W-2 job as long as you can, so you've got that consistent income to borrow against. And if you're in your 20s and you do the plan that we talked about earlier of buying an FHA loan with multiple units, then going into a single families for a couple of times. If you stopped and did nothing else, right, for the rest of your life, by the time you're retired, those properties are paid off, right? Those 6 properties are paid off, and you've got 6 units coming into you, and all you did was set yourself up for 3 years. You inconvenienced yourself to a degree. And let's be really honest. First-time home buyers typically aren't buying the dream home. They're buying a first-time home buyer home in most situations, which usually are good rental properties, right?
Right. Yeah, I like the phrase you kept using. If you were in your 20s, what would you do? Here's what I would do if I had it to do over again if I was in my 20s. Now, let me give you two different possible tracks. First of all, if I were in my 20s, knowing what I know now, I would start going to all of the real estate investor meetups in my area. I would find the old guys in the room that are still really active. And I would find out a way to work for them or work with them. And in other words, like when you're in your 20s, a lot of times you might be attracted to work with someone who's like 30 years old and who's like 3 steps ahead of you. But I think I would get the most benefit from finding someone who's been grinding for a really long time and going and working for them or working with them. Now, maybe that means going to work for them as an agent if they're licensed and they're also an investor. I don't know what that looks like, but I would not approach them like, hey, would you be my mentor? What can I do for you? I would try to find a legitimate employment opportunity in someone's organization who's doing what you want to do and try to get as close to that person as humanly possible. And that's what I would do. If I had to do over again, I was in my 20s, that's what I would do. And I would find someone who's been investing in multifamily or something like that. And if you don't find them at the real estate investor meetups, because sometimes at the meetups, you're going to find like 80% wannabes and like 15 or 20% of people that know what they're doing.
Right.
If you can't find that, then do research on who owns the most properties in your area, who owns the multifamily, who owns commercial real estate, and get across the table from them and say, hey, I'm 22. I want to come learn real estate investing in commercial property. I want to work for you. What can I do to add value? So if I were starting over again, I would try to do that. Now the caveat
is because in your 20s, you've got time and energy.
Yep.
In your later career, you have experience and money. And so those go really well hand in hand.
Yeah. Yeah. So yes, exactly. So the other aspect is if you have the entrepreneurial disease of you have to hustle and do your own thing. Okay. Because there are people who've done that. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They just grind it out. If you have that, first of all, if you can go work for some high capacity person to learn everything about them, you will be way ahead in 10 years. So do that if you can. If you can't, if you just have to be on your own and hustling and scrambling, then find a way to make enough money and buy your own house and slowly, get into it that way. I would say in the big picture, long term, you will do better if you go work for the guy that learned stuff over 40 years. Okay, and he can shorten your learning curve. Now, I could be wrong about that, but that's what I think. Now, what I didn't do that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, how did you buy your first rental?
That's a great question. Now, so first of all, my grandparents were real estate investors, so I kind of had that benefit.
So you literally had in your family the person that you're saying go get.
Yes. My grandparents were real estate investors. They were builders. They were developers, and they had rentals. And so when I was 8 years old, I was helping them clean out rental properties, and they self-managed. And so so when I was 19, I was 18 when I bought my first house. And when I was 18, I got married at 17 and bought my first house when I was 18. And my first house I bought, I found a lady who carried the note for me. Okay. We bought a house. I think we paid $32,000 for it. It was a 3-bedroom house and it was newly remodeled. And she carried the note for 10 years.
Wow.
And we made a payment, and we were paying $270 a month rent for a 2-bedroom apartment in this little town we were living in. And the payment on this was going to be $400 a month. And that was a lot of money for me at the time, but I stepped up and did that. And that's how we got into our first house. So my first rental was a year later. My aunt was buying and selling houses in the area, and my grandmother was buying and selling houses. And my aunt came across a house and told me about it. And I went and talked to the owner of it, and I bought the house for $13,000. And the guy was living in it. And I went to the bank, and my aunt co-signed so that I didn't have to put a down payment on it, and it appraised for 20. So
Wow.
that was my first rental.
Okay.
And so that, you know, so I had the benefit of that family connection, you know. And by the way, when I left that town, I sold that house back to her, and she still owns it today.
Interesting.
And she owns the house that I owned, that I lived in at first.
Okay.
So that's how I bought my first rental. You know, what about you? Tell me, Taylor, how did you buy your first rental?
My first rental was unintentional. It was honestly a flip gone wrong. So I bought a property in Norman where at the time the average sales price was probably 180, maybe close to $200,000. And I bought this property for $24,000. It was just dilapidated.
Whoa.
And it's right next to the railroad tracks. And I bought it. I fixed it up. I made some mistakes in the rehab. I put too much in it. And when I went to sell it, I was going to be able to make some money on the flip. But it was because of the railroad track, we put it up on the market, and because of the railroad tracks, we just weren't getting what we wanted. We had a couple of offers that would have made us a few $1,000s. But I was like, man, like I can rent this thing out for $900 a month. And well, let's just try that. And so that's what we did. So ours kind of came by accident, but we bought a house for $24,000. We put about $50,000 in it, and then we ended up renting it out for $900 a month. And I still have it to this day, performing as an Airbnb. Cool. One of the other keys that I would say, I think one of my biggest mistakes that I regret is I wish I would have not ever sold a primary residence. I sold my first 3 properties that I owned as my own primary residence. If I had it to do over again, I would not have done that. Now, the reason I thought I had to do that was because there was equity in that house, and I thought I needed that equity for the down payment for the next house. And the truth is, with a line of credit, a home equity line of credit, I could have kept every one of those properties. They would have all been amazing cash flow properties, even paying a line of credit, and I'd still have those in my portfolio today. So I think a simple tweak is, you want to buy your first rental property, look at the house that you're in and see if it would make a good rental property, and then go buy another house for your primary residence and keep that one as your rental property. Right. And then leapfrog that.
Right. That's good. So that is our wisdom or information. I don't know if it's wisdom, but if you execute on it and you do well, then we're really wise. But if you just listen to it and don't do it, then. But that's how we got our first rentals, and that's how we recommend you to get your first rental. So good luck. You guys should message us if you go out and get your first rental. You should let us know that you did it. So thanks for your time on this, Taylor. I think we are about out of time, but thanks for watching The Real Investing Show, guys. Please like, comment, and share. Let us know what your questions are about real estate investing. If you're interested in buying property in Oklahoma or any part of the country, reach out to Taylor. He can help find you a good agent somewhere. And if you want to invest with the both of us, let one of us know, and we would love to connect with you. Thanks a lot. We'll see you later, Taylor.
See ya.